In the last class, we saw how to create a Maven project from the Eclipse IDE, how to add the project dependencies for Hibernate and JDBC drivers, and we have installed Hibernate tools, and we saw how to use this Hibernate tools, one of the wizards which we have used in the last class, to create a Hibernate configuration file. Yes. So we saw how to define an entity class. So you people have this table. All of you have MySQL database on your machines.
Yes.
Everyone. Harsha, Krish, from Madhavi. From Madhavi said okay. Rama, Sita. Okay. Saujanya, how about you? No. Make sure that you install it. How will you work otherwise? Actually, I request you people to use MySQL for this training because I'll be creating schemas and all, right? So I'll be sharing this queries and all with you people so that you can just work with it. And later on, you can work with any comfortable database with your family with. Okay.
Hey, Mahesh, can you just share a URL for that MySQL download? I see there are many. I don't understand this.
Okay.
Yeah.
So first of all of you here, I'll be giving this query. So this is the query. One query to create product table. And okay. Now before that I'll do this. What MySQL? You'll find MySQL community servers.
Yeah, there. I don't know. There are many downloads I got. I didn't understand.
Okay, let's see.
I installed it and I uninstalled it again.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I don't know what. Yeah, this one. Okay.
You can go for this installer if you're using Windows. You will need
Okay.
it will install Microsoft. I guess you need some additional plugins and all. Maybe it has that has asked you
Yeah.
when installing. So you see, you can go with this MSI installer. You need Workbench and server, Microsoft, sorry, MySQL server, both. This is the link. Even if others
Okay.
want to do the same, you want to install it, you can do it. You see, you've got Windows installer here. You can take the link. Here is the direct link. Just a minute.
Okay.
This one.
Okay. Oh, MSI installer. Okay.
Got it? Okay.
Yeah.
Even others, if you need it, you know, if you need to install MySQL, you can do that. So meanwhile, you see, I'm copying the queries for you people to this. Just a second. I'm going to do one thing. Um, People who were there from the core Java for this training, I'm changing the folder now. Okay, so you will be given access to another folder, so where you will find the records of this advanced topic right from JDBC. Okay, first, you see, you'll have two tables. First, you have to create this supplier table, then try to create a product table. Yeah. Mm, I want you people to make sure that you work during this training time itself. I mean, maybe not in the class. If you can do it in the class, well and good. Otherwise, even if you do it later also, that is fine. This is the portal link I'm going to give you. DecemberJEEBatch code for Hibernate and create a folder here. And the product SQL statement. Okay, so you'll find that folder. So I will share this folder with you people today. I mean, already it is accessible for few people, so others also will do it. Next, the data also. Yes, already I did this in the last. Okay, I have the data file. Rename it to DDL, product DDL. You'll find the sorry queries to create tables. And here you'll find two more files, products.sql and supply.sql. So you'll find the insert queries to add the data. Okay, whatever the data I've got in my table, so you will find the records for this table. So queries to insert the records. You can just simply copy paste it in your editor and execute this queries. You will be able to do that. Okay. Yeah, you have them. You will why to delay. It will take only a few minutes for me to. Harsha, this is your ID, right? Check your IDs once
Ye- Yeah.
and confirm
Yes.
it. And already you have it. Already I have shared it. Niharika, this is your ID, right? And Nama, this is your ID. Smita, this is your ID, right? This is your ID. Saujanya. Okay, right?
Add me my mail ID also.
Already you are here, right? This is your mail ID. It's VM.
Oh, okay, sir. Thank you.
Are we creating a new schema here and then
Right.
adding these tables?
Sorry,
Are we creating a new schema?
not a schema, tables.
Just a, we have this classic models. You asked us to download that sample
Yeah,
database.
you retain it like that. I'll tell you when to use it again. Okay. First, you have practiced it, right? For your practice purpose, to work with SQL and all, I gave you people that. Okay. Later on, again, you'll be
Mhm.
using it. Yes.
So where we have to create these tables?
This table, product and supplier,
Yes.
you have a test schema, right? You can do it in the test schema.
Okay. I don't have it, so I have to probably create a schema now.
Yeah, you can create a schema. If you want to create a schema, you'll find this icon in the workbench. Create a schema.
Uh,
Okay.
where?
On top, create new
Okay. Okay.
schema. You got it?
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. All of you, I recommend you people to please use MySQL for a while so that you see we'll be in sync. So whatever I'm doing, you'll be able to do it on your machines also. After practicing it, I'll give you people some tasks and all. So that again, you see, you got a classic schema. I'll make you people, I'll ask you people to work with classic schema to create entity classes, mappings, and all such things. Yeah, that is your case study. So, yeah, Niharika, you have just joined, right? So, in that folder, just now which I've shared you, from now on, I'll be sharing the records, code, everything through this folder, okay? So, your old folder only contains core classes. So, now here in the code folder, you'll find, Niharika, you'll find the tables to create, you'll find the queries to create supplier and the product tables, as well as the data, okay, for inserting the records. That's it. Okay, fine. So, now all of you, please make sure that your mics are muted. If you have any questions, you can unmute and talk to me. Yeah, thank you. But I want you people to work with this concepts, whatever we are discussing, whenever you get some time, but please don't delay it. Otherwise, you lose interest or you'll forget or you won't be able to do it later on. Yes. So now we have the table, we have the mappings. Now let's try to interact with the database server. So how we are going to do that? So for this, First of all, you need a session. Am I right? Okay. You need a session. So what is session? You people saw that. What is a session actually? What is a session? Session is a primary component, as I told you people. Session is actually used to interact with the database server. Okay, session is a primary component which is used to interact with the database server. So first of all, you need to create a session here. You need to create a session. And how will you create a session? To create a session, you need to create a session factory object. You need a session factory object. You can say. The name itself indicates session factory. That means, you know, the session factory object, you'll find that it is responsible for helping you to create sessions. I can say it's a factory for creating objects. Which object session? And why we need session? Session will help you people to perform DB operations like adding the records, fetching the records, updating the records. Such DB operations, you can perform them through the session itself. Yes. So now let's write the code to create the session factory first of all. For this, I'll be using a separate class itself, class called as hibernated. Yes, hibernated. Okay. Now let me write this code. First of all, I'll declare a session factory reference variable and I'll make it static. And I'll add a static block here. And here in the static block, I'll write the code to create that session factory object. I'll tell you and talk about static block. First of all, you need to instantiate this class called as configuration. Sorry. Instantiate the configuration class. It is from Hibernate itself. This is one of the primary components I can say. You see, so here will by instantiating this class, I can say that basically we are trying to load or bootstrap Hibernate. I can say we are trying to load or bootstrap Hibernate. Yes. Okay. Now after instantiating this class, you will call this method particularly called as configure method. What this configure method does, the configure method, when you call this method, it will load the hibernate.cfg.xml file. It loads hibernate.cfg.xml file. So, by default, it will look for that Hibernate configuration file. Okay. Okay. What if we want to change the configuration file name? As of now, as I told you, see this load method, it will take this configure method by default, it will look for the hibernate.cfg.xml file. It will look for that file in the class path. But if you want to change that configuration file name, is it possible? Can you do that? I can say yes, of course. It is very much possible. You can do that. Okay. So you can change the configuration file name, and whatever the name which you gave, that configuration file name, you have to pass it explicitly here in that case. We have overloaded configure method, which takes that file name. Let's say I gave the configuration file name as sample.xml. So you pass it. That's it. Okay. Hope you people got it. So, but by default, if you don't specify any name, it will look for that configuration file name whose name is hibernate.cfg.xml, and it will load that. So this is how you'll bootstrap or load Hibernate framework, I can say, using this configuration. Yes. Next, here we need to create a service registry builder, service registry object, service registry object. In this way, I'll write the code and then explain it. this entire step here which we have written, it creates a service registry. So this is how you load the services, I can say. Okay. This is how you load the services. Hibernate services. All the essential services will be loaded, which helps us to work with Hibernate framework. Now, what exactly we are doing here, let me explain the steps. So to create the service registry object, you will be using the service registry builder. You will be using this service registry builder here. Yes. This service registry builder, you will find that it, to the service registry builder, you have to pass the properties, Hibernate configuration properties. For that, you'll call this apply settings method, which is actually defined in the service registry builder itself. Okay, this method chaining. This is actually method chaining here, I can say. This what we're doing. This method chaining. So to this apply settings, we are passing that configuration properties. How? By calling this get properties method. So on the configuration object, you call this get properties method. You'll find that it will return the properties, a map which contains the properties. You see, what are the properties here? Configuration properties. What do you think? What we have in the configuration properties?
The dialect, app name, user ID, password.
Yeah, the database configuration. The properties here basically they refer to the database configurations, I can say. Yes. Okay. So we are supplying this property to the service register builder. And then you'll call this method build, which creates the service builder object here, I can say. It creates a service builder object. Service registry object. It creates a service registry object. Okay. Now, once you're done creating the service registry object, with the help of configuration object, you can create session factory object. So configuration dot build session factory is the method which you'll find and pass the service registry object here. That's it. What happens? You'll get a session factory object. You'll get a session factory object here. That's what happens. So this is the process of creating a session factory object. You see, I've written this code in the static block. So when exactly the static block executes? What do you people think? Let me explain. So this block is a special block, I can say actually. So whenever this class is loaded into the memory, the class loader will load the class into the memory. Once the class is loaded into the memory, see the static block will execute automatically. static block will execute automatically. So we don't have to do anything. Yes, we don't have to call the static block explicitly. Okay, we don't have to explicitly execute the static block. Yes, it only executes once when the class is loaded into the memory. So in the application's lifetime, this class, how many times it will be loaded? What do you people think? In the application's lifetime, how many times the static block will be loaded? Yes,
Once.
only once. A class is loaded just once. And once the JVM loads the class, it won't load it again. Okay. Yes, it only loads the class once in the application's lifetime. Just remember this point. So that means we'll be creating how many session factory objects?
One.
Only one. You know what? You'll find that it is recommended that we create only one session factory object for the application. For an entire application, a session factory object is enough. Just one session factory object is enough. You don't need multiple session factory objects. Throughout the application, you can use the same session factory object. Yes, to create any number of sessions, I can say. You can create any number of sessions here. So this is how you'll be creating a session factory object. Now let's do this. Now we are done creating the session factory object. Now what we need to do, you see, the application should have access to the session factory object, right? Application should have access to the session factory object. So for that, we'll create a get method, a static get method, getter method here. So you can call this method, it returns a session factory object here. That's it. You call this method, it returns a session factory object. It's fine. So now let's test this code. I will define a test class here. Now I would like to fetch the product records from the database server. Okay, one more thing. I'm sorry. So we have, I want to fetch the product record from the database server. For that, you see, we have a product class, right? Which is mapped to the product table. Now, you know what? This entity class which you got here, you have to register it with the framework. How will you register that entity class with the framework? You know, you have to call a method for that, configuration dot annotated class. Okay, and you can specify that class name here. This is how you'll register the class, product class. Okay, product class. That's it. That's what you need to do here. So now, once you're done registering the class, you can use it here. So let's create a session factory object. So let's obtain a session factory object first of all. So I will call that hibernate util class method. Get session factory, which returns the session factory object. Next, here, once you got the session factory object, you can use the session factory object to create a session. In the session factory object, you will find a method called as open session. Call this method, it returns session object. It returns a session object. Now you got the session. So this is how you're going to obtain a session. And once you got the session, you can just call the sessions get method. So the get method, it is used to fetch the records based on the product ID. Okay, from the database, you can fetch the records based on the product ID, I can say. So product class ID, let's say 101. I have a product record whose ID is 101. So you can just fetch this record. That's it. You got the product object. Now let's try to straight away see you'll get a product object here. So you see we don't have to establish the connection. So we don't have to write any code to, we don't have to write any code to construct the query, execute the query. You see, create a statement object, prepare statement object, execute the query, fetch the results. You'll get a result set object, right? And transform that record which is in the result set object into product object. So we have to do all such stuff. Yes, we can avoid it. Okay, yeah. So now let's try to display this record here. Okay, ID product dot get ID, name, price, and a description. So these are the things which you got. So let me just display this record. But before that, you see, once you're done using the session, close it. Once you're done using the session, close the session. And also, you see, because this is a standalone application, also close the session factory. If it is a web application which runs 24/7 or an enterprise application which runs 24/7, you should not close the session factory. Because it is a standalone application, we'll close the session, okay? The session factory, especially. I'm talking about session factory. What if we don't close the session factory? Services will be up and running. Your Hibernate services will be up and running. As I told you, when we create a service registry object, services will be started, Hibernate services will be started. And that services will not stop until and unless you close the session factory. The services will not stop until and unless you close the session factory. Okay, yeah. So this is the code which you got here. Now let's try to run this code. Hi Vishank, you there? Okay, we're late today. So we have just written the code to create a session factory object and fetch this records through the session. Okay, so you got the record. So this way you can interact with the database server. Yes. So first, to create a session factory object, we did this. The session factory object, why do we need it? To create a session. So you need to create a session factory object this way. Just a minute, please. Give me 1 minute. Just a minute. Okay. So, so far what we did here from this discussion, so you have any questions in this regard, please let me know. Now, how to fetch the records, right? So this is how you'll do this in Hibernate. Yeah. So anyone got any questions, please let me know. So now let's try to do one thing. Here we'll try to add a record. So we saw how to fetch a record. So what if you want to add a record, then what you will do? Let's see. So to add the record here, see, adding the record is performing a non-select DB operation. Non-select DB operation. So whenever you want to perform a non-select DB operation, Hibernate recommends you people to use transaction context. Always the non-select DB operations, you have to perform them under the transaction context itself. Yes. So let's see how to work with it. So you'll open a session. Now, once you got the session, okay, let me just create a session factory object here. Sorry, not session, a product object. You see, to easily initialize this product object, for the convenience sake, I'll add a parameterized constructor in the product class. Okay, this is your parameterized constructor which I've added now. So I'm creating a product object, and then let's initialize it. You see, we have records here till 214. I will add a new record. Okay, 215. Let's say espresso. Espresso. So now you see we have a product object, and in this product object we got some data, and we want to, I mean, yeah, this data means it's the object state, right? So I want to add this product object state to the database server. I want to add this product object state to the database server. So how we will do this? How can you add this product object state to the database server? So as I told you people, now if you, this is non-select DB operation, so you need a transaction context for that. So obtain a transaction. So you'll find transaction in org.hibernate package. You take this transaction, import it, and how will you create a transaction object through the session? In the session, you'll find this method called as get transaction. In the session, you have this method called as get transaction. So it returns a transaction object here. So what you will do with this transaction object, you see, you will start the transaction first. Start the transaction context by calling this begin method. So this begin method will start the transaction context. So once the transaction context is created, the next thing is here, we can perform the non-selected DB operations. Once the transaction context is created, we can perform non-selected DB operations. Yes. So again, we'll use session for this purpose. In the session, you have save method. Call the save method and pass the product object here. That's it. Okay. Call the save method and pass the product object reference here. So now the save method will generate an insert query to add this record to the database server. Okay. So it inserts this product record into the database server. It will read the data from the product object and it adds it to the database server. And then you see you'll commit the transaction. This is how you'll end the transaction. Then you can close the session. Close the session. So this is how you'll perform non-select DB operations here. Okay. We'll discuss more about the transactions later on. As of now, for the time being, so this is what I want you to understand here. Okay, so it is done. Or we could have see, if you want Hibernate framework to display the queries which it generates, we can do that. I didn't enable it. Let me do that. Okay, yes. Go to the configuration file In the configuration file, you can add this property show SQL. Okay, hibernate dot show SQL. You can set it to true. What happens if you configure this property? See, this property value, I set it to true. So if we set this property value to true, what happens? You see, whenever Hibernate framework generates a query, you'll find that it will display that query in the console. It will display the query in the console. That is what it does. So already we did execute the query now, right? You can check for that record whether you have the record or not, first of all. See, you have it here, 215. I'll delete it. Let's try to add it again. I'm deleting that record. Yeah, I did that. Now we have record still 214 itself. Now, this time when I run this query, it should display that insert query Hibernate framework generates. Okay, it is supposed to display the insert query Hibernate framework generates here. Yes. You see, you got that insert query, which is generated by the Hibernate framework. Okay. So, anyone got any questions in this regard? Please let me know.
Had a question.
Yeah.
In the util file, hibernate.util file, you have added this product class, right? So if we have like 100 tables in schema, if we want to use all of them, we have to add everything.
So actually, you don't. In that case, you can just add the. Actually, it's not table name. It's the classes. So that was the class name actually,
Oh
which
yeah,
you have
yeah.
configured. So in that case, if you have 100 classes, so they belong to a package, you can add the package details.
Oh, directly package.
Yeah. You can do this.
So for each table, we have to create this class, right?
Yeah. You see, you have the data related to that records, right? So you see, for product records, so we are creating a product class for product table. So product table, it holds one entity type details, right? Product entity type details.
Yes.
So whenever we fetch the data, so how that data has to be represented here in Java as objects. So we need an appropriate class for it, right? That is what we are trying to do here.
Is there any way how to create these tables classes automatically?
Yeah, there are tools, a lot of tools for that.
Thank you.
Yeah, okay. Still, anyone got any questions? Okay. So let's move on. Now, we saw this basics. Let's talk about a case study. We'll take a case study and we'll try to implement it. Okay. Yeah. So straight away I'll take you to first. Now let's take this case study. In this case, this case study is about an application. I mean, a business first of all, not even an application. I'm sorry. Let's say we have a business here. Okay. What is the activity here which is going on in this business? You see, it's a online shop. So wherein users can sell their products or items, I can say. Users can actually sell the products. They can post the items, I can say. Products means items. Users will be able to post items, and the interested users, they can actually place bids on the items. They can actually place the bids on the items here. Yes. So the users who place the items for sale, the users who place items for sale, these users are actually called as sellers. So the sellers, are the users who will place items for sale. So, I mean, the interested users, will place bids on this item. Interested users will place the bids on that item. So the users who place the bids, who wants to buy this item, they call as bidders. We call them as bidders here, I can say. Okay. So once a bidder wins the bid, okay, highest bidder will win the bid here. So to that bidder, you see, that item will be sold. You will find that here a bill will be generated. The bidder, you see, for that bidder, a bill is generated, and the bidder is supposed to, highest bidder is supposed to make the payment for that bill. Once the bidder makes the payment, You see, this item will be delivered to this bidder. So this is what happens in this action bazaar. Okay, so this is the activity. So you see, the sellers will post items for sale, right? Yes. So the bidders can place the bids on this items which are posted by the sellers. The highest bidder wins the bid, and to that bidder, this item will be sold out, and a bill will be generated. Okay, once the bidder wins the bid, a bill is generated, and the bidder is supposed to make the payment that bill against that bill. Once the payment is made, the bidder will the item will be delivered to that bidder. This is the activity. So, and few more things. You see, now the business, the clients, okay, who are running this business, they want to actually they want an application for this. Let's say they want application for this particular business. So they want an online shop now. So that users can post all items online for sale, and every activity should be completely online. Yes, yeah. So we have to develop the application for this. You see, how will you start? First of all, we are working with Hibernate framework, so we'll be interested to concentrate on the data part here. Okay, so this application will have some data, right? So we need to maintain this data. So let's start working from creating a table schema so that we can store the data related to this particular application. So data is important for any business. Okay, yes, even now the company which runs this online shop, the Action Bazaar company, let's say, so they need the data related to that items which are posted for sale, right? They need the data. They have to store the details about their sellers, their customers, both sellers and buyers. Also they should be able to, store this order details for future reference, payment details, right? So they should provide the details about this items which are placed for sale, whichever items are posted for sale. So you see, the application should provide all these details here to the bidders, to the buyers, I can say in other words. So data is important. So let's start from the data perspective here. Okay, not the front end part and all. Just will concentrate on the data, not even implementing business logic. So the application has to deal with this data. So we need to create tables so that we can store the data in the tables appropriately. Okay. So how will you start? What is the first thing we'll do? Yes.
Identify the tables to be created.
Okay. How will you identify the tables here? So this is just you see here what we have just the description about that problem domain, I can say. I mean, what is the activity which goes on in that online shop? We got the details about that activity or business process, I can say. That's it, right? We won't have any details about the tables here in this description. Yes. Diagrams. Okay. So how will you start? So now dealing with the data, storing the data appropriately, it's most important thing here, right? So what you do? So, in order to help us in this regard, we got a concept called as domain model. Okay, we can actually create a domain model for this problem domain, I can say, which helps us to identify the data. Okay, what is the data which we have to capture, and appropriately it helps us to create tables. Okay, also identify the relationships between the tables, everything. So what is this domain model? First of all, let's see. So domain model provides a conceptual image of the problem domain. Domain model here, it provides the conceptual image of the problem domain for which we are developing an application. Domain means we are referring to a business here. When I say problem domain, that means basically we are referring to a business. You see, you'll find that in the domain model, you'll have the description or the details about the entities involved in this domain. So through the domain model, you'll identify the entities which are involved in this domain, their attributes, relationships, constraints, cardinality and ordinality constraints that govern the problem domain. So you have those details here. So basically, yeah, as I told you, the domain refers to the target domain. So you see, why we need a domain model? The motivating goal behind the analysis and design of a domain model is to capture the essence of business information, the data related to this business, as I told you people. So Hibernate, using Hibernate, will be dealing with the data always, which is related to a business, right? So that's the reason why we are just concentrating on this part of the application here, which deals with the data. The business information, it helps us to capture that business data. Okay, yes, so that we can accordingly store this data. You see, you'll be storing it into the database server. You'll be fetching it from the database server. So we'll be working with the data always. You'll be working with the data always here in Hibernate framework, right? Yeah. Okay, fine. So you see, how will you start? So basically in the domain model, you'll have the details about the entities and its relationships, the cardinality constraints and all. So the first thing is here, how will you identify those entities? What are entities here? What are entities? Entities means, you see, the objects, I can say, which are involved in this domain. Entities are the objects which are involved in the domain. Yes. So in this problem domain now, what are the objects which are involved? You have to identify them. That is your task. Now let's go back to this uh, process here, business process which you got here. You can check this. Now can you people tell me, just look at this diagram. Okay, if you want, you need description, I'll show you. But this is a complete diagram. Now you check the activity here in this action bazaar. Okay, this is the activity which goes on this action bazaar, and try to identify the entities which are involved in this problem domain or in this business domain.
Categories, items,
Categories, item, okay,
bidders, sellers,
bidder, seller, yes,
these are the four which I can see.
okay. So what about others? What do you people think?
Trial.
Oh, Rushank,
Orders.
just a minute. Rushank, I guess you have some issue with your mic. Whenever you're speaking, you get a strange voice. That's it. We can't hear you. Yeah, orders. Yeah, that's right. People said seller, bidder, and what else? Order, item, category,
Items, category,
and what else? Yes. Mm, even bid. Okay, bid. Also, you see the item. It will be delivered to the user, right? So when we talk about order, as I told you, a bill is generated. So for that bill, you'll have an address, billing address will be there, right? Yes. There are a lot of hidden things also which we need to identify, though we don't have those details. When you talk about order, you'll have a bill, billing, and for that you'll have an address, billing address. How the customers will make the payment, the details also you'll have them, right? Credit card details or debit card details, whatever it is. So we can add few more here. Yes. Okay. So user, you have seller and buyers, right? Yeah. Sellers and bidders. And what else you have? Okay, good. We have identified the entities, I can say. So what exactly you will have in the domain model? Yes. What exactly you'll have in the domain model? Entities will be there. And what else? Yes.
entities and relationships.
Entities, not tables. In the domain model, we don't talk about tables.
No, relationship.
Just, yeah. So when we talk about a domain model, you'll have entities, their attributes. So what are the attributes? For each entity, you'll have attributes. Yes. For example, if you take this seller. So what will be the attributes? Attributes means, you see, in terms of object-oriented concepts, they are nothing but the properties. They are nothing but the properties, I can say. Okay, got it? So what are the attributes of a seller? Yes. Seller ID, name,
Seller ID, seller.
okay, name, email, date of birth, right? This is basic information about the seller. Gender, date of birth,
Address.
yeah. Address, we have a separate entity for that, right? Yeah. Okay. So for bidder, you'll have similar properties for bidder also, right? So this way, you see, you take any property, you'll have set of you take any entity, you'll have attributes. Each entity will have attributes here, definitely. And then, you know what? These entities will be related. Entities are actually related here. Yes. So how these entities are related? What are the relationships between these entities here? Yes. Which entities are related? Can you people identify the entities which are associated here, which are linked? Which entities are associated? Seller item. Okay.
Order also.
Order also. Okay. Seller will place an item for sale, right? Or will post an item for sale. Seller will post item for sale. Okay. Or post. Next, you see, seller has an address. Seller will have address. That is how you describe the association. Bidder will place bids. Bidder and bids are associated. Who will place the bids? Bidder will place the bid. So bidder and bids are associated. And then you see in turn, bids are associated to the items. Bids are placed on an item, right? So bid entity is associated to bidder as well as the item. Yeah. Yeah. Billing and credit card. Yes. That's right. You can say that. And what else? Item and category. That's right. Item and order also. Not category and order. Item and category. Item and order. So item order is placed for an item, right? So you have those details. Yes, of course. So this way we have various entities which are involved here in this problem domain. See why we are identifying these entities. So these entities basically they represent the data, business data. The entities itself they represent the business data here. So the associations and all they'll help us a lot. Okay, what's next? After identifying the associations or relationships, we need to also understand the you know inheritance relationships. The associations we discussed about it now. They're simple associations here, not inheritance relationships. Okay, and we have to also consider the cardinality constraints. Okay, we have to also consider the cardinality constraints here. So we'll do one thing. Tomorrow, I'll show you people how to draw this domain model for our application and the associations, complete entire domain model. And I guess I'll show you a domain model diagram where you will find all these entities and the associations between them. And we'll try to implement this domain model in the programming. So now let's see how many tables you have to create for this entities. You see how to understand how to derive the tables from this domain model. How many entity classes you have to create here for this domain model, entities in the domain model. Such things I'll talk about it. Okay. So first step is identifying the entities in the domain. Okay, that is the first step in creating a domain model. And then attributes, and then relationships, and then cardinality constraints. Then this domain model, we'll try to implement it here in the programming. So we'll see. We'll try to derive a database schema from this domain model. Also appropriately, set of Java classes which we need here on the Java side. Yes. Okay. But I'll do one thing. I will leave early today. Okay. So half hour early. Tomorrow we'll start implementing the stuff. I'll be using a tool. If you want me to show you people the tool, I'll do it. Otherwise, I'll get a diagram which is already created. Okay, and then we'll use it here to understand the tables and all. What tables you have to create. Okay. Yes, that's it. So far what we have discussed. So is it clear for you people? Any questions in this regard? Please let me know. Okay, good. So let's meet tomorrow at our regular time and we'll continue our discussion. Thank you all. Bye-bye.
Thank you.